Gang violence, mass shootings, domestic violence, mental health. What do all these things have in common? Well, abuse. That's what. Every documentary I've watched and all the research that's available online points to some sort of abuse that these perpetrators have experienced in their lifetime. They've been either been abused sexually, physically, mentally, or all the above. And when they become adults, guess what? They seek revenge. So it's easy to sit there passing judgment, but how many times do we actually look into the past of these people and try and figure out what led up to this event? So let's dig a little deeper into this, shall we? Every now and then I see news popping up of someone just going in there with a automatic rifle and killing a lot of people. So
Yes.
it doesn't make sense as to why you would create that type of problem. Is there something that I'm missing here?
Well, I think there's something we're all missing. Like, what kind of world do these government, what do they want from us? Why were we all so loving back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s? 70s, we got condemned because we were so loving.
That was the
Now
hippie
we're
time.
in, yeah, and I loved it. You know, I
1960s, faced with an unpopular war that they were told not to criticize, a significant segment of the younger generation rebelled against their parents, their communities, and their government. Spurred on by rock and roll, they chose, as countercultural guru Timothy Leary put it, to turn on, tune in, and drop out. In other words, they became hippies. The long hair, the stoner speech patterns, the peace symbols, and the flower power. At the time, they were viewed as a very real threat to the American way of life. In addition to opposing the war, hippies advocated communal living at a time when communism was the country's ideological enemy. They spurned the work ethic in an era when people defined themselves by their jobs. They embraced Eastern philosophies and religions that were alien to most Americans, and they took over whole neighborhoods, most famously San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, where 100,000 hippies settled in for 1967's summer.
But it was so peaceful.
But they criminalized it in some sort of way. Even.
And then, yes, and then the criminalization started back to happening in the 80s. It got worse, 90s, and now we're in the 2000s, and it's like there's no more love. Even the commercials you see on TV, I mean, it used to be really sweet commercials. Now look at what we're getting. It's, you know, domestic violence. I'm hoping one day they're going to put parental alienation on commercials, but they're showing people getting hit, and these commercials are not done in a proper way. So, you know, kids are picking up guns. They're thinking because these video games they get to play, virtual killings are mentally embedded in their heads as well. So there's so many issues out there that are corrupting our kids' minds. And these kids are growing up to be adults, to have kids, and their minds are just, they're fried. I mean, they don't have any love in their hearts anymore. They don't have love in their minds. They're always thinking deep down, depressive things.
And now you've gone as far as removing the only love that the child actually does have in their life, us being alienated parents, and leaving them with a narcissist and abuser. The only logical reason why a government would allow this is, well, obviously to maintain control. You control by fear. We know that the best control with narcissists is through fear. And people might say that this is just another conspiracy theory. And I myself thought that as well until I started reading a little bit deeper, and I'm understanding the way the world works now, because I didn't watch news for years. But now I do, because I have to do my research. And As you mentioned, parental alienation is probably the root cause of almost every social issue that we've got in this world today, I believe.
I believe so, because when I met my ex husband, I was 18 years old. He asked me to go to the courthouse to help him change his name to his stepfather's name that he got when he was 14. He was 18 when he was changing his name. And I didn't understand what he was saying at the time, but he told me that if he changed his name to his stepfather's name, his stepfather would stop beating him. And I thought,
Wow.
whoa, what is this all about? So I kind of stayed away from him. I said, no, I'm not coming with you. And I went with my friends. But because I said no to him, he bullied me to be with him and actually forced me to marry him because he threw me over a cliff and said if any guy would come near me, he would kill him or me. And at the time, I was engaged to somebody, and he ended up getting murdered 6 months after I was thrown over the cliff. So I got the fear put in me that if I didn't end up with this man, he would literally kill me and my family. And so watching that kind of bullying as an alienated kid, he like literally went psychotic in so many ways that scared me that, yeah, if I left, he would kill me. So there's a lot of women getting murdered because they can't get away from these people. And these people, usually, it's all childhood trauma that kept them from being a healthy person to becoming murderers, alienators.
In South Africa, we've got this bill that we passed, but there was a huge spike in domestic violence against women and children. It's now called gender based violence here in South Africa. But a lot of women are using this, however, as a means to arrest innocent men. And I'm hearing this more and more where this man has never been convicted, never had a violent nature of any kind, and now being falsely accused, and they actually get arrested, go to jail. The accuser, let's say the woman in this case, just doesn't pitch. And the case gets thrown out. There's no perjury, there's no repercussions here. So I'm just tying it back to what you mentioned earlier is there's a gender war going on here, it seems. Women wanted equality
Yes,
first. Now it's more like women want to take revenge. I don't know if that's happening in Canada as well.
it is true. I have to tell you that I caught one of my brother's wives trying to kill him, and it
Wow.
ended up going to court. She didn't get arrested, but they took the child away from my brother. And I said, no, 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 no. I said, this is wrong. I said, she's the one that tried to kill him while he was sleeping. And she got off. We haven't seen my niece since 2008. My brother's still fighting for his name to be cleared. And that's no different than me. I mean, I'm still fighting to get my name cleared after my two false arrests. They want to recharge me in this trial. They want to bring me back and put me in prison for something that I already cleared once, but it's to me it's double jeopardy. You can't bring back something, and I can't prove anymore that something that never happened. What I told the police was, well, why don't you arrest him too and put us under interrogation and see who's got the story before you take me away from my children. So this is what they need to do. If someone calls in an accusation that they're going to get hurt or something, well, put them into interrogation as well to see why they're
Absolutely.
going to get. This has got to stop. You cannot just take one person out of the home because someone says so. And
Yeah.
this is what I'm trying to prove. Just because he said I uttered a death threat and he said he took the kids out, I mean, that's evidence enough.
How do you even prove something like that? Because it's hearsay, it's your word against his. So,
Exactly. And yet you get condemned for something that he says or she says, and that's just not right.
No, it proves more and more that this is by design. This is the system. This is exactly what they want. And
Money.
but now, how do we fight this?
What the world needs to do is come together. Like I have over 100 parent alienation groups on my Facebook page. I am on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. But I just keep finding everybody's split apart. But if we come together and fight as one unit, like a government, we have one leader for the parent alienation group, but everybody works together. No one is left out of the equation. This is what we need to do. We need to protest like these truckers did for the COVID, the shots. If we don't come together, we're just going to keep falling and falling and falling.
It's exactly my sentiments. Lately now, I've been mentioning it almost on every show that everyone forming their own little groups here and making a little noise, we're getting nowhere with this. But there's this one documentary I watched not so long ago. It's called Erasing Family. You probably know it. And in that documentary, and this was, stand to be corrected, but in 2020, the stat was released. In that documentary, they say that 22 million parents have been alienated at that time, just counting the parents from their children. Now, considering that there's between 1 and 3 children maybe born out of that marriage, so that's another 22 to 66 million children that's been affected. So that's the one thing, uniting as parents who've been alienated, and even the children who have been alienated, who's finally realized we need their voices in this as well. You also mentioned to me, Mary, that you do reunification, right? What's your reunification process like?
It's not really working yet as well as we want to, because there's a lot of rejecting from the other parent that they don't want the kid in reunification. So the children have supervised visits, but it's not really helpful in that way, because the people that are there are for the alienators. They're not really there for the child and the alienated parent.
Yeah, the only reason why a visit should be supervised is this child's life is in danger. So already there's this perception about the alienated parent that they are dangerous.
Right. So it's not really helping with reunifying.
Okay. So then we need to, all right, we don't have to come up with a solution here. I guess that it's something that we constantly need to brainstorm. But
right.
I don't know if you follow the story about this guy, what's his name? Roaz, that shot himself and his 3 daughters in Sacramento.
And tonight we're getting our first look at David Mora, the man accused of murdering his 3 children and another man before taking his own life.
New details just coming in tonight on the suspect's criminal history and the victims just identified. Thanks so much for joining us now at 5 o'clock. I'm Elizabeth Kling.
And I'm Curtis Sming. Our news streaming live on CBS News Sacramento. The names of the victims released this afternoon. The 3 sisters are 9-year-old Samara Mora Gutierrez, 10-year-old Samantha, and 13-year-old Samia. The man supervising the visit with her dad was 59-year-old Nathaniel Kong. We've also just learned the suspect was living at that church in some kind of arrangement, according to the Sacramento Sheriff's Office.
Sad.
I immediately saw parental alienation there.
Me too.
I believe that man was pushed over the edge.
Yeah, nobody just goes and kills their children for no reason. There's a reason. He didn't want to lose them. When I was alienated from my children too, I hate to say it, but it left me mentally and emotionally to the point where there was no reason to live anymore. My children were 15, 17, and 18. I can't imagine if my children were 4, 5, 7, 10. I mean, that would devastate me, knowing how happy my children were with me, and to be stripped away and handed over to an abuser and I can't help them, that is incredibly the most painful thing a parent can go through. So when that father killed the children, I automatically saw that he was being accused of something and he was taken away from his children and he couldn't bear it.
Same thing, yeah. In fact, I was going to do a little segment of my own, because what I've seen on the news is that this man has been vilified. And yes, I don't stand by what he's done. I think it's horrific. I think he was a coward. But there's always reason behind what people do, no matter how messed up that reason is. And for some reason, the question kept ringing in the back of my head. Where's the mother? Why is she not being interviewed? It's clear that mental health is declining everywhere in the world. And I don't think it is being prioritized enough. While everyone is worried about the end results of people suffering with these mental illnesses or diseases, we should be looking at how to prevent it. Now, Mary has her own plan of raising awareness, and she continues to do so. Check it out in this next episode over here, and let's try and figure this out together, shall we?